So before I start this interview, there are a couple things. Firstly, the clips that I would have had to use in this interview would have Viacom with a copyright problem off my ass. So I have had to transcribe the whole thing and read it out myself in clips that you'll see. I highly recommend that you watch the original. What you'll find in the description, it's so much better to understand. You'll get better context. Just go watch that first. The second thing is that Trevor is from South Africa, and so am I. I lived there till I was 10. I was born there, and I learned so much from school about the apartheid and Nelson Mandela and all of that stuff. Like there was just so much stuff about it. Like even older people and people in my family would tell me about their own experiences in that. And since Trevor Noah is older than me, he has been closer to the apartheid and the aftermath of it, way closer than I will ever be. So he would have had a better understanding of it. So it's just really odd to see him spouting all of this nonsense, all this stupid regressive nonsense, as if he didn't grow up in a place that taught him about Nelson Mandela's stuff and all of the stuff that happened, as if he learned nothing from it. And that's really weird, considering I was taught so much about it in school, and my parents and the people around their age told me that they had to go through that stuff. They had a lot to deal with in terms of that sort of stuff, so it seems impossible that you could not have all of that rammed into your brain. And I just don't get it. There's this big disconnect here. And knowing all of the things that happened in the past, in South Africa especially, how can you compare that to now? Like, sure, you can point out that there are some things that have had an effect until now that have left people in a disadvantaged state, but then you can't point to people who exist now, who have the same skin color as people who might have been bad in the past, and say that it's their fault? How can you see that's not racism? And how can you see that, even with that point, just full on comparing the past to now and saying that very little has changed? That is laughable. That is not the fault of the people who are alive now. I'm not saying that racism and sexism don't exist. Of course I'm not saying that. You'd be stupid to think that I am. But I don't see how being an apologist to some sort of group that is very misguided and not helping anyone is doing you any good. And how you can't see how bad this is. I mean, you continuously make jokes at Tomi Laren's expense and expect the audience to laugh at her, but I'm the one laughing at you, Trevor, and I'm not the only one.
The interview starts with Trevor asking, "Why are you so angry?" Tommy replies, "I'm really not that angry. It's just that there are things that need to be said, Trevor, and a lot of people are afraid to say them." Trevor replies, "In an angry way. I mean, you can't say you're not angry, and I mean, this is what you're known for."
Okay, first, I greatly dislike this audience. You will get the full effect when you actually watch the clip, which again I recommend, but you will dislike them. I will guarantee you that. I really don't like them, and I feel like at least I am doing some sort of service to you by simply writing it in and narrating what's happening instead of showing you the actual clip while you're here so your head doesn't explode. The audience claps and cheers like a toddler who's just been given their favorite brand of ice cream and a cartoon to watch. They boo like the monkey that they've been abusing has stopped dancing because it learned how to avoid the bullets that they were shooting at its feet. They gasp like delicate aristocrats who are so out of touch that they can't figure out how a peasant who's run out of gruel can't just eat cake instead. I really dislike this audience. And nice tone policing, Trevor. I mean, I suppose if you say it forcefully and as often as you can, maybe it'll be true. And yeah, if she said something in the past, like where she was angry in some clip that you can provide, you can say, "Why were you so angry in this instance?" That would be fine. That would be a good question. But this? What are you doing? And speaking of anger, I suppose you don't like her being angry here, but if a Black Lives Matter person was angry, you would defend that anger. You would justify it. And yeah, I know, anger happens. Because you would say they justify it in their outrage. Well, here's the thing. People do get angry, and they need an outlet for it. And I get that. But that's why people don't really like Black Lives Matter, because they are misleading people with lies, and that anger, because of those lies, is being fueled to do some really bad things, like chanting really weird things in the streets, harmful stuff. That's one of the reasons people don't like it, because people understand anger. That's why we want fair points from different perspectives available so that people can actually find out for themselves what's going on, instead of being indoctrinated into one PC narrative where they have to let their anger out in a really weird way. Take someone who's been in Black Lives Matter and then suddenly realizes that everything that they've been taught in Black Lives Matter was a lie. Now they feel anger and betrayal, so now they have more fuel to do some more destructive things. That's why people are angry at regressives, because we understand how anger works.
Tommy replies, "Sometimes people just need to be called on their bullshit, you know? I mean," and Trevor interrupts her by saying, When you say bullshit, what in particular? 'Cause this is the thing. And then Tommy speaks over him and continues with, well, when you're protesting a free and fair election, that means you need to get called on your shit a little bit. It's time to clear the streets, it's time to accept reality a little bit, it's time to move on, it's time to make America great again. To which Trevor replies, you consider yourself a conservative. And the audience laughs a little bit.
I was expecting you to dodge the question. I mean, it's still annoying, but I was expecting it by now. But why did you get a laugh out of the audience when you said that she was a conservative? Like, why is that laughable? I mean, if she was the cookie cutter stereotype, the utmost stereotype that you always hear about, and then you were like, so you're conservative, I'm guessing. Like, it would kind of be so obvious that it would kind of be funny, I guess. Maybe that's what you're going for. But she hasn't been doing that at all. She's just been actually a normal person. I mean, she just has different views to you and she's expressing them in a very polite way. So I don't really get why that deserves a laugh. Is it because you think she's racist? And for God's sake, could you at least let her finish her points before you butt in with an unfunny joke? Or at least an attempt at a joke that you know your stupid audience will laugh at? I mean, she's trying to explain her points and then you just keep going off on irrelevant shit, and then when the audience starts laughing or clapping or booing at her or something like that, then you just use the noise to redirect the conversation so that she never gets to explain what she's talking about.
Trevor continues with, in terms of Black Lives Matter, you know, like, you have quite a record. For somebody who is not racist, you have to spend a lot of time saying you're not racist. The audience laughs, and then Trevor continues with, what's your biggest issue with Black Lives Matter?
Everyone has to defend themselves against accusations of racism because the Spanish Inquisition over here decides that nothing is good enough for them and they have to dictate what it is to everybody else. I have been called racist against myself because I oppose intersectional feminism. And I've been called racist because I oppose Black Lives Matter. So to me now, this doesn't even make you a bad person. Like, sure, you could be actually racist, but I'd probably just think that some random oversensitive bullshit has gotten your way and that's why you're apparently a racist now. Thanks for ruining the word. And I love how you had to put all of that stuff in before you ask her the question about Black Lives Matter. Like, you had to set up the entire thing to establish you are racist if you don't go with Black Lives Matter. Like, that is a fact, and you have to set that up for the audience with all of those questions.
Tommy replies, I think, and I've said this many times, that it started out with good intentions. I think it was always started out with good intentions. The moment that they started pushing hands up, don't shoot, which is a false narrative, proven time and time again to be a false narrative, the minute that that became their slogan, the minute that the protesting turned into rioting and looting and burning and militant actions, that's when I lost respect for Black Lives Matter.
Same here, I get that. They're not helping black people at all because they're ignoring what's actually going on. I mean, there's poverty, there's the fatherlessness, there's that kind of bad atmosphere, that bad culture that's going on. There's the schools in the black communities that don't have the best funding. I mean, if instead of pointing at people and going, your skin color is different from mine, so therefore I hate you, why don't you just try and bring people together to like fundraise for it, to make shelters for people who have been caught up in this stuff, who have gone with the wrong people, they want to change, and then you can give them some sort of salvation, to go to that shelter, to give them a place to stay. You can get people to go to schools and fix them up, to talk to people, to make sure that the kids are getting good education, good families, they're getting all the stuff that they need, they're actually having good lives. You can make sure that people have enough money to live by. There are so many things that you could have done that would make me do a completely different video, going support Black Lives Matter instead of saying how hateful they are. But Black lives don't matter to you, do they? It's just hating white people matters. But you can't call it that because it doesn't sound as nice, does it? They sound kinda racist.
Trevor replies, protesting turning into rioting, that's not a Black Lives Matter phenomenon. That's what happens when there's a protest a lot of the time.
Yeah, but why are they protesting? I mean, they're protesting over lies. That's the point. There's these violent protests because of lies, and then here's how you fix them. Violence! That's what's happening, that's the question. And no, it's not because black people don't have a platform. It's the same thing like women don't have a platform because of the patriarchy. Whereas there are all these women talking about all these things in all the platforms. And it's not this massive conspiracy trying to put women down. It's the same argument here. Again, there are genuine things that you could talk about. You could talk about poor black communities and people who are living in poverty and they're not getting the resources that they need. You could talk about stuff like that and make some sort of fundraiser for it, make some sort of talk for it, actually use the facts, the real things, the reality, and start talking about it, and then people would acknowledge that. You could actually do something productive and live up to your name of Black Lives Matter. And protests usually have a couple randoms just joining into this unrelated protest, no matter what it is, just so they can smash a couple windows, steal a couple TVs or something. That happens. But when you have the actual protesters themselves promoting violence, that's different. As Tommy will say in a future point in the interview, they're saying F the police, fry 'em like bacon. All of that stuff sounds violent. And it's coming from the protesters themselves, in big groups, in unison, in a culty kind of fashion that's pretty creepy. It's not just a couple people who want to steal some microwaves or rob a bank, while the people are going around marching for whatever reason. And this whole point of, well, other people do bad shit too, doesn't erase her point that they do bad shit as well. All you're saying is, well, other people do it. You're not saying Black Lives Matter isn't doing it. I don't get this point.
Trevor continues. There are people who rioted and looted when teams won in Chicago years ago. That doesn't mean that they are now bad people. That's what happens. There are some bad people in every instance. Going back to Black Lives Matter though, for you to say that, you say they have good intentions. How can you say that when you're labeling out the actions of a few and condemning an entire group? I don't understand that.
Sure, people riot, but here's the thing. Those Chicago teams or whatever weren't putting out PSAs going, if you're our fans, you should go and hurt other people who aren't. You're not getting the point here. It's not that just a bunch of fringe people have joined the group and started to fuck shit up. It's that you get these masses of people in this group being pulled together as just this one mass, this unified mass of people who are being encouraged to do this stuff. And people having good intentions doesn't mean you can't criticize them. I mean, you could have someone who thinks that everybody is going to go chill in Valhalla if you kill them all, and that this is your purpose in life, so you're gonna go hack innocent people because you think you're doing a good thing. And I know that's an extreme example, but I'm just showing you get my point. People who have good intentions doesn't mean the actions are gonna be good. So you can't just let them off like, well, they're trying to be a good person.
Tommy replies, they subscribe to the Black Lives Matter movement. They say, we are Black Lives Matter. Fry 'em like bacon, F the police. They say those things. And Trevor interrupts by saying, those are a few people. These are a few people. These are not Black Lives Matter. This is not the platform though. Tommy replies, I saw it in my city of Dallas. I saw what a Black Lives Matter protest looked like, and I saw 5 fallen officers because of it. So I've seen... And then Trevor interrupts again with, that's not fair. That's not fair. And Tommy replies, no, it is fair, Trevor, because the shooter said, point blank the shooter said, he's doing this because of Black Lives Matter.
Trevor, you are giving the same argument over and over again, and it is not working. You're just a stubborn person who is refusing to get any sort of different perspective, because you have this one thing that you want to repeat over and over again. This is the same argument I hear for Islam as well. They're a radical terrorist who says that they're for Islam, but they're not really for Islam because I don't think they are. Those few hundred people that say that they're doing this because they are part of Islam, and just because in their religion it says that they should do this thing, that doesn't mean that they're doing this thing. Like, what are you talking about? Don't criticize them, you're racist. Even though it's a religion or an organization and anyone can join it, you're racist still because reasons.
Trevor replies, yes, and there are many things you can say. I mean, if you go outside, you can say anything about doing something because you cannot deny that the man had mental issues as well. He was in a tough place. Just because you say the thing doesn't mean it's what it stands for, right? Because you're the same. You're the same person who argued on your show that just because Donald Trump has supporters from the KKK doesn't mean he's in the KKK. So it goes against the argument. The audience claps and cheers.
This is the same argument. The same argument as that Chicago team's bullshit. Trump is one person. Trump is not making PSAs going, go and kill people. He's not saying that. And he says he doesn't like the KKK. That's what Black Lives Matter should be doing. They should be going, look, if they really didn't want these extremist people going around beating up white people, then they should have said something like, those people don't belong to Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is not this violent thing. We're not pushing this message. They should have said that. Then people would know. But they didn't. They didn't do what Donald Trump did and actually say, I'm not for this. Because if that was the case, I don't think you would see masses of people doing this. You might see a bunch of people and then a bunch of other people disavowing them and going, I am not for this. But you're not seeing that. You're just seeing a bunch of people joining in because they have an outlet for violence and racism, and it's just happening, and the mainstream media is going for it. Just because you say the thing doesn't mean it's what it stands for, right? So like feminism, can't trust the dictionary definition? I mean, just because you say the thing doesn't mean it's what it stands for.
Tommy replies, no, and Trevor interrupts with, you can't say he didn't do that because of. And Tommy tries to reply, saying, no, because he, the shooter, said, I am. And then Trevor interrupts again with, yes, but Black Lives Matter has never said go out and shoot people. What if someone says, I felt emboldened by Tommy Lauren and I want to go out and shoot black people? Would you now be responsible? Is that true?
It's not just one or two people, and Tommy says this in the next clip. But Tommy isn't a group. That's the difference. It's the same fucking argument. The same argument for the third time now.
Tommy replies with, no, Trevor, it's not one or two people. You look at the protests that have gone down in Baltimore. And Trevor interrupts with, how many is it? And the audience laughs and cheers.
Hey Trevor, you think black people were slaves in the past? Well, how many are there? What, off the top of your head you can't tell me the number? Well, I guess it didn't actually happen, did it? I don't even know why you bothered to bring that up because you can't tell me the exact number off the top of your head. I didn't even think it happened in the first place, you know what?
Tommy replies, in Ferguson, in New York City, the protests that have now turned into anti-Trump protests, these are not a few people. These are mass crowds of people. They're doing this in the name of Michael Brown, of Freddie Gray. They're doing this as the front of Black Lives Matter, and the mainstream media is emboldening these people. And all the while Trevor Noah is saying the word okay repeatedly as she talks.
Again, on point. Look, you won't hear it as it is because obviously I'm the one who's narrating it, but in the actual interview itself, Tommy starts talking faster and louder at this point, because I think she's realized that Trevor is going to keep interrupting her no matter what and trying to derail the conversation. So she is trying to get as much out as she can, as fast as she can as possible, because she knows this is the only opportunity she'll get for this particular topic before he either derails it, makes a joke to make the audience laugh, and then through the noise derails it or tries to humiliate her or something, or just flat out change the subject right away. And she's just kind of having to roll with it because it's his show, and she knows that the people in the audience don't like her, and they're not willing to listen. It is pretty frustrating, isn't it?
Trevor replies with, then let's use the same logic you're using and then go, the police. Are the police racist? Because in many cities, you look at Baltimore, you look at New York, you look at what happened in the case of Walter Scott. You tell me, are the police racist? Because they've been shown to shoot black people when they're unarmed. Does that mean the police are racist then? Because it's the same logic you're using.
What logic? That's surely not the logic she used. I don't even know what logic that is. I mean, of course, I think that the police shouldn't just go without criticism. There are a lot of things wrong with certain ways that the police act. There's a lot of corruption, authoritarian kind of just control. There's just all this stuff that you need to criticize, but it is not just racism. There might be some racist cops, sure, but black people aren't the largest number of people being shot. I mean, there are a lot of white people being shot. Here's the thing, there are things that need to be criticized about the cops, about the system and all that. But what you're doing is you're not actually looking at the actual problems. You're making up problems, you're pushing all this stuff that doesn't make sense, and then the real problems that you're ignoring and you're trying to cover up so that you can go on with your own thing, they are getting worse. And then the problem is getting worse. And then you'll just see all of this stuff that's going to make you angrier because you don't understand why it's happening. And you don't understand why it's happening because you're not actually looking at it. You're still going on with the same narrative without actually looking at the ways that you could really improve what is happening. That is what people are trying to tell you. The entire definition of police itself, the definition of going to jail, the entire system, that is not rigged against black people. That's not designed to be rigged against black people, because wouldn't black people just be like the biggest amount of people going and being in jail, getting shot? That's not the case.
Tommy replies with, it's really not though, Trevor, because the mainstream media is not emboldening them as a group. It's not. And did you know that a black man is 18.5% times more likely to shoot a police officer than a police officer is to shoot a black man? That's the statistic that nobody wants to talk about. The audience boos as she says this.
The fucking audience. She is right, but she would have been able to explain why that's not a racist thing to say and why there's actually something to that if the audience didn't get fucking triggered and started crying like babies so that they couldn't hear her. Of course you immediately jump to it being racist. You're not even gonna stop to let people explain why.
Tommy continues, "So it doesn't make me a bad person. It doesn't make me a racist to point out. I've never used racial slurs to address people. I've never looked down on someone because of their skin color. True diversity is diversity of thought, not diversity of color. I don't see color. I go after Hillary Clinton, and she's as white as they come." The audience gasps and laughs at her.
Why is it a bad thing to not see color all of a sudden? I thought that was a good thing. The audience seems to think it's a bad thing. Is it because they can't play victim if people stop thinking about color?
Trevor replies with, "You don't see color. So, what do you do at a traffic light?" And the audience laughs at his joke. Trevor continues with, "I don't believe in that at all when people say that. There's nothing wrong with seeing color. It's how you treat color that's more important." The audience cheers, and Tommy replies with, "You're right, Trevor, it is."
No, Tommy, it's fucking dumb, okay? Don't give him that. I know what he's trying to say. But I know he's trying to say we shouldn't treat people bad because of skin color, we should treat them better, blah blah blah, but that could just be solved by saying you shouldn't see color, because there are a lot of people who don't. That's the thing. Why do you not believe people when they say that? They're not saying that in a literal sense. They're not saying that every single thing that they have is just completely neutral. Everybody's got their own biases because of their own lives and the way that they've lived. But what they're saying is it doesn't matter. I mean, I could easily see that as an argument for why you should treat someone better than other people because of their skin color. How you treat color, not exactly the best way to phrase that.
Trevor replies with, "Here's my thing. All these points you've made are great, and I do believe that you believe that. And I don't believe people are actively trying. There are a few people who are trying to be bad from their point of view. But when I look at what you're saying, you say you're not pushing a racist narrative. You're criticizing. Do you really think you're criticizing and not acting with malintent when you say Black Lives Matter is the new KKK?"
That is not racist, because the KKK is like Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is not doing a good job in trying to not be like a KKK type group. Enough with the groupthink. Feminism does not mean women. Black Lives Matter does not mean black people. And of course you say her points are great, because you have to say that to be a good host, but we know that you ignored them, didn't listen to them, probably got fucking triggered by them on the inside and decided to skip them entirely, because they hurt your feelings, and you wouldn't want your audience to start with the pitchforks and torches again. I know they get triggered pretty easily.
Trevor continues, "Black Lives Matter can't be the new KKK, because the KKK is still around." And the audience laughs, and Trevor continues, "They have not vacated the premises, and most importantly, to say Black Lives Matter is the new KKK is to really minimize what the KKK did, and what they stand for. This is not the same thing." The audience starts clapping, and Trevor continues again, "Surely you understand the incendiary feeling of your comments. You know that."
Is everything you say bullshit? She's saying that they act like the KKK, and they're acting like the KKK would regarding race, and they do.
Tommy replies with, "It's controversial, but I think there are some things that need to be said. And when the Black Lives Matter movement is going around saying, 'Fry 'em like bacon, F the police,' when they're going out and saying, 'When you see a white person, target them,' that is happening. And when that becomes the narrative, you're starting to loot, burn, and riot. What did the KKK do?" Trevor replies, "That is not... Look, we're going around in circles. Did you just say what did the KKK do?" And the audience laughs.
Stop thinking that making jokes equals an argument. Your jokes aren't even good. Stop trying to be funny. George Carlin is funny. You're not funny. You didn't respond to anything she said, and you know full well that she is saying that Black Lives Matter is acting like the KKK, and she's listing all of these things that Black Lives Matter has done, and she's saying, what did the KKK do, as a way of saying, well, now you see what I mean. Now you see why I'm saying that these two groups are comparable. You know full well that she's saying that, but you can't confront that, so you're trying to be a cringy little fuck and change the discussion.
Tommy replies, "No, listen, Trevor. When there are people in the street saying, if you see a white person, beat their ass, does that not sound reminiscent of the KKK or their motives to you?"
I just don't understand why you pretend to not get that. And if you actually didn't get that, how the fuck did you even get this job if you can't even understand conversation? He's not making this easy at all. She's trying to make a point, and he could at least engage the point and then counter with his own point. But he's not, because I don't think he has any.
Trevor replies, "Is that the narrative of Black Lives Matter, or are there people who are saying that in a crowd of other human beings?"
I love how you said human beings to try and elicit that kind of emotional response, like, we're all just human beings, why are you insulting other human beings?
There is a distinction between a movement and the people. That is something we keep coming back to.
No. What the fuck is a movement without the people? It's just like a fucking definition after that. You need people, otherwise it's not a movement.
Trevor continues, but let's go back to what you're saying on Colin Kaepernick and the national anthem. This is something I don't understand. When I watch your videos, I go, I truly do not understand. When you say Colin Kaepernick is exercising his First Amendment rights, and you are exercising your First Amendment rights by criticizing him, so what you're saying is, you have the right to say anything you want, so shut up.
No, that's what SJWs say. You know those SJW videos like the bedroom feminists who are like, well, free speech means that I can tell you that I don't like you, as a way of trying to justify why they keep shutting people down. They try to use that free speech argument against people like that. That's what SJWs do. I mean, sometimes people use that argument as well because they know a bunch of regressive SJWs will start coming up and saying, why are you criticizing them? You shouldn't be criticizing them. You're being oppressive for criticizing them. And then they have to make that argument, even though it's fucking obvious. That is why people do that now.
Tommy replies, no, not at all. I'm saying I don't agree with what he did. I think he went about it the wrong way. I think he understands. And Trevor interrupts with, what is the right way? People are saying that, always. What is the right way? So there's a black man in America who says, I don't know how to get a message across. If I march in the streets, people will say I'm a thug. If I go out and protest, people will say it's a riot. If I bend down on one knee, it's not. So what is the right way? That is something I've always wanted to know. What is the right way for a black person to get attention in America? The audience claps and cheers.
Well, there are tons of platforms. As I said, there isn't some sort of thing that bars everyone who isn't white from getting on some sort of platform. I mean, how do you think I started this channel? The problem is that you're thinking from a victim mentality. See, I grew up with a lot of this SJW stuff. I grew up kind of fitting into that and becoming that, and when I was thinking that way, I got nothing done. I could get nothing done. All of the stuff that I like video making about this sort of subject, music, art, games, all that stuff. I couldn't do that because I kept thinking of how I couldn't. I kept thinking, somebody else has to get it for me because I'm so oppressed. Because I'm near the top of the progressive stack, that means I'm more oppressed. But then the minute I broke out of it, I realized, hey, I could pool a bunch of money that I have together. I could go and buy that secondhand guitar because it's the only one that I can afford right now, but it looks pretty cool. It works in pretty good condition. I could start looking up stuff and teaching myself how to play. And you know what? I did. You can do so much if you stop thinking of yourself as a victim. Maybe you are a victim, but you know what? Why don't you do stuff to be successful, to make yourself feel better, and to also do it as a metaphorical punch in the face to those people who oppressed you? You don't need the hate. You can just rise above it and go, you know what? This doesn't affect me. I just kept going anyway, so fuck you. You're just left in the dust while I'm doing what I can. That is the kind of attitude that you could use to actually be a person. There are tons of non-violent ways to do things, and conversation will always be on the top of those non-violent things. Talking to people, understanding what they say, and making them understand what you say. That is always the best way to get your point across, and you are not doing that. You are aiding in the death of that.
Tommy replies, taking it out on our flag and national anthem, to me? And Trevor interrupts with, but how? And Tommy replies with, if you take out your perceived oppression of black people out on the national anthem and our flag and a country that you live in, a country that you benefit from, a country that people of all races have died for, have died to protect, have died to vote, died to be enfranchised by this nation, how do you then go out to disrespect the flag and anthem of that country? Why is this the outlet? The audience gasps, shocked, when she says the words, perceived oppression of black people.
Yes, there is a perceived oppression. Sometimes people might actually be oppressed, sure, but that's their life. There is no big Illuminati, white people, black people conspiracy trying to keep people down just because of their skin color. Besides BuzzFeed, probably. And people, like you guys in America, you have the First Amendment. You have the right to say all this stuff. I mean, you have over here in Australia, you have the ACT, where they can't criticize shit now because they don't have any freedom of speech. Because they might hurt someone's feelings, especially if they're Muslim or something. You have Germany, who's fucked itself over more times in 1 century than any other place I can think of.
Trevor replies with, well, maybe you're a person who's lived through, who's read through history, and you've realized that a lot of those people who've died for this country, Some of them didn't have the rights that their fellow servicemen had when they came back to the country after fighting. The audience claps.
Hey, Trevor, don't you think by Tommy saying died for the vote, died to get enfranchised by this nation, died for their freedom, she was talking about people dying for their rights. She wasn't saying only white people. Maybe you're the one thinking only white people because of that weird superiority-inferiority complex that's going on in your head. Don't you think she meant fighting for change when they were fighting to get things that they didn't have before? Don't you think the black and white people who fought to get rights for the black people that the white people had but the black people didn't, and then rinse and repeat for every other thing? Don't you think that's what she meant when she said all of that stuff and said a country that you benefit from? And what about the minorities who have the flag as a symbol that means a lot to them? I mean, if it doesn't mean a lot to you, that is completely fine. And I'm being serious, that is completely fine. If the national anthem and the flag and everything does not mean a lot to you, completely fine. But what about for the people that do? Why has it become this massive symbol of the patriarchy or just oppression in general? Are the minorities who express pride when they see the flag, are they just thinking the wrong way? Why don't you ever address those points? Are they just non-existent to you because they just don't go along the same lines that you think they should? I do not like the prison systems in America. I do not like the way that they operate. I do not like the way that they make profit. But that hurts white people too. That hurts a lot of people. That's not just for black people. You're like those people who argue that women should get more lenient sentences in prison, but it doesn't really matter that men get prison sentences that are so much bigger. And a lot of the time they just get treated like shit by the courts. You completely ignore that because they're men. It's the same argument that you're using. It's because they're white people. I don't know what you're talking about. They're white people. Who cares? And you don't know how to protest any other way than violence and division? Than racism and bigotry? That is sad, man.
Tommy replies, I don't protest because I'm not a victim.
That is why I do not agree with feminism and Black Lives Matter and the whole regressive SJW mixed bag. That is why I do not agree with them. I am not a fucking victim, and I'm sick of people trying to treat me like I'm a victim, that I need to be chaperoned, that I need to just sit back on a high chair while people carry me around and do all the work for me because I'm too dainty to do it myself.
Trevor replies, it's an interesting place to be in because honestly you've won. Like, your side has won. As you say, the liberal snowflakes are melting in the streets as they protest. And now I would like to know from your side, genuinely, as someone who's won, do you believe that Donald Trump will follow in on his promises? Tommy replies, I will be a vocal opponent if he doesn't.
Well, at least you admit the snowflakes are a group of people that people do not like. But you would never admit why. And yes, the best thing to do with anyone, Donald Trump, anyone, is to criticize what they do if they do something wrong, if they fuck up. Just as you would do with everyone, as you should do with yourself as well. Just watch out for that. That's the best thing. Doesn't matter what the fuck they look like, it's what they do.
Tommy continues, I've been seeing the effect he is having on people, and the things he was saying. He was touching people and making them feel. Trevor interrupts with, he was touching people, and the audience laughs. Tommy replies, Hillary could use some of that every now and again, right? Bill's a little busy. And the interview ends.
See, Trevor finishes on a joke, but even then, Tommy's just got a better joke. She's got a better rebuttal that actually is kind of funny. Now, I don't really know what Tommy's other beliefs are, so I can't really speak in that aspect what she thinks and whether she operates well with that, or whether she just makes a good argument. I don't know. But in this particular context, it was really well done. In this particular context, I think she did really well. She brought up really good points. She was very patient. She tried her best with the limited, really terrible conditions that she had to argue. You know, when I was little, there was always that thing of, these are the people, the good people. These are the people that you're supposed to think are funny. These are the people that are bringing up good points. This kind of told me that, like, these are the people that you like. These are the people that everybody likes. They're PC, they're really cool. And you kind of are expected to take them up as your role model, or at least recognize them as something that has the potential to be so. And you think it might be a bad thing, or at least disappointing, to see all of these supposed heroes or role models that you're supposed to look up to, just when you're older, revealed to be really kind of stupid and not that good in the first place. Well, they're just kind of simpering and whiny. And while it is kind of a disappointment, I am happy that I'm replacing them with people and concepts that I know are better. You know, instead of hiding behind hate speech laws because the baddies might say something that you don't like, that it's okay if the same amount of people, the exact same people, have power for a really long time and no one else is allowed to get power over them. And no one else is allowed to try and be in a contest against them just because they're the good people. That's okay. Having that replaced with the concept of just free speech and fighting for that, fighting for the free marketplace of ideas, that's so much better. Even though I'm kind of disappointed at all this stuff. I'm disappointed in Trevor Noah, I'm disappointed in all of those weird people that are unfunny and boring and just vapid and whimpering. Replacing them with people like George Carlin, who's fucking fabulous. I mean, I would prefer him over Trevor Noah any day. Just that it's okay. I mean, it's more than okay. And I think it's kind of cool. But, again, one more time, I will recommend you check out the original interview. Even if you think it's gonna suck, check it out anyway. It tired me out. I'm starting to understand hardcore drug addictions. Fuck.